This program is intended for informational and educational purposes only. All views and opinions expressed are the views and opinions of the individuals and sponsors presenting them, and not the LTB network. Enjoy the show.
This is Sex and Science Hour with Brian Sovereign and Dr. Stephanie Murphy. Get your freak on.
This is Sex and Science Hour. Welcome to the show.
It's about time it was this hour.
I know, we've been penting up all our stuff all week to let it loose this 1 hour Thursday night.
And if you believe that.
No, we try not to pent up anything. But,
no, nothing.
Hey, Brian, somehow we made it to show 12. Every show that goes by, I'm like, how did we actually make it this far? But I think, there might be some changes coming for Sex and Science Hour.
There might be.
Yeah, we've been on the radio on KCAA. I'm not sure if this show is going to air on KCAA or not. Maybe it'll make the cutoff, but that contract apparently is ending, and we were just going to be a podcast-only show. So I'm not sure what that means for the content of our show, but we did get a listener email that kind of relates. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, somebody wrote in and said, basically he loves our show, but why do we bleep out our words, like our wordy dirds, like the words that you can't say on the radio. And that's actually the only reason we do bleep them out. He made some good arguments. He said, everybody knows what you're saying. You really don't have to pretend like This is really stupid. What's so offensive about these words? He actually says he's Dutch, and that if they really want to offend someone or curse someone, then they say that they wish they would get tuberculosis or cancer. That's interesting.
Wow. Well, the Dutch have, they've been ahead of the game as far as socially, I think, for quite a few hundred years.
Yeah.
It was, the Dutch Republic was too hot for the Pilgrims. That's why they came to America. Originally, they didn't plan on it.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. There's no way that it could be fun to get tuberculosis, but if somebody says F you, that could potentially be fun if it's done in the right way,
Yeah, as long as it's wanted, consensual.
So the only reason that we have been bleeping out words on our show is because we are in the U.S. and we were up to this point on a terrestrial radio station, and they have silly little rules that they have to follow because the government says that there are 7 dirty words you can't say on the radio.
Yeah.
And they came from George Carlin, funny enough.
Yeah. The U.S. is so crazy with this stuff, especially even anime that comes over from Japan. There's points in anime where they literally have to redraw the character to hide a part of them, just because.
Oh, is that okay? So I don't know if this is true. Maybe you can help me separate the fact from fiction here, Brian. But I have heard that in Japan there's some censorship rule where you can't show a penis on TV. You can show other body parts, sexual acts, no problem, but you just can't show a penis. And so that's where tentacle porn came from, apparently?
No, that's not where. This is partly true.
I must have messed that story around in my head.
The tentacle porn in Japan's been around for hundreds of years. This is not. There's paintings where a woman's getting it on with an octopus.
Oh my.
Okay. So that's not necessarily new. There is a cultural, even though this is fading away, and it's not just in anime, it's in regular porn too. If you watch the works of Hitomi Tanaka or someone, you'll see that she's essentially stroking pixelations. It's a very strange thing, but and also in the drawn and anime and manga, they have to show a bright light or they have to fuzz it out, but that's actually going away. They're stopping that.
Wow. That's so funny.
Yeah. It's the reasons behind it are rather strange, but anyway, but it's just ironic because it's all culture. Because in America, you can't show cleavage, okay, in anime, and then you go to Japan and you can't show a vagina, but you can show cleavage, and it's wait a minute, what?
Yeah, you know what they say about culture, right? Culture has cult in it.
It has cult in it.
Yeah,
that's right.
and most of the cultural traditions are not really much better than cult-like practices. So there you go.
But I understand the point about the bleep because there's actually an infamous pseudo documentary, and I say pseudo because I think a lot of what's said in it is nonsense, called "What the Bleep Do We Know?"
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
like, come on, just call it what it is. I mean, how can it be any worse than the fact that the movie's, the documentary, quote unquote, is made by someone who thinks that she's channeling a 35,000-year-old Lemurian general that fought the Atlanteans? You might as well just say,
yeah, exactly. Well, maybe next episode we will be able to say that. We'll have to see if Adam B. Levine turns into the censor FCC or whatever.
Yeah, this will be interesting.
Organization. Because if we're not on the radio anymore, but he still doesn't want us to have bad, dirty words on the Let's Talk Bitcoin network, we may still be bleeping. I'm not really sure. Or, who knows? So I love how our emailer just totally called us out on that. He was like,
Absolutely.
Come on, everybody knows exactly what you're saying.
Kudos.
And if they don't, maybe they shouldn't be listening to your show. And I agree.
Yeah.
So we do have something a little more serious to talk about. This is actually pretty outrageous. I came across this story a couple of days ago, but it's been going on for quite a while. There's a large bank, one of the largest banks in the U.S., and it's not just this one bank, it's lots of different banks. And apparently there's some policy that's coming down from the U.S. government, but is being totally obediently enforced by the banks because they don't want to get in trouble themselves or they don't want to lose their banking license, where they are basically closing the accounts of porn stars, of businesses that sell firearms and ammunition, of other types of businesses, even businesses that offer items with a lifetime guarantee, businesses that sell any item at all that has, quote, too many chargebacks. They are cutting those businesses off. And it's a very deliberate type of cutting off. There's a government program called Operation Choke Point. Can you believe that?
That's so...
And what they're trying to do is they've identified, all these different industries where they're legal industries, but the government just doesn't like them. So what they want the banks to do, and they're kind of strong-arming the banks into doing this, is to cut off access to financial services for those types of business. So even if you have a completely legal gun shop, or if you're an adult actor or whatever, it happened to a porn producer too who tried to refinance his mortgage. He was told he was being declined for moral reasons.
Right, which California porn is totally legal there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
actually, all of these
legal.
businesses, or most of these businesses, are legal businesses.
Right.
And you could have a completely legal business, but you could lose your access to your bank account just simply based on the whims of some politicians. And I think that stinks.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's totally not fair.
No, right. I mean, this is the problem with, I talk about this a lot, where government's one thing, okay, but the fact that people seem to be generally okay with this because what are they telling the banks? That these businesses are morally objectionable. Okay.
Or they might be used for money laundering.
Yeah, or something. And this is the problem, is that society is really still where all the power lies. It's not in the government, because if society didn't think that porn was morally objectionable, this wouldn't hold any water. And in California, it's very, very easy for the people to, make propositions against the government and overturn stuff. And, it's a rare state as far as that goes. With that in mind, again, it just, for me, it highlights how crazy society is. In that I'm far more terrified of conservatism than I am of government.
Yeah. The moral majority, the people who want to legislate their version of morality or what they think, how they think people should live. I agree with you. These banks are saying, well, we're declining your mortgage refinance for moral reasons, or we're closing your bank account because your business is immoral. But it's not a moral choice for these banks at all. They're having a gun pointed at them by the government.
Sure.
And isn't that what Christians always say? If you're it's only a moral choice. If you make a, quote, a good moral choice, it's only moral if you actually decided it. It's not moral if somebody's forcing you to choose that way.
Right.
The same concept of, welfare versus charity, right? If the government steals money from everybody and then gives it to a charitable cause or gives it to somebody who needs it, well, maybe that's great for that person who's receiving the money and they needed it and they need some help. But it's not a moral thing. It's not charity. That's not a charitable act, because the people who the money was taken from in the first place didn't choose to give it.
Right.
It would only be charitable if they chose it.
Yeah, you're not doing good by paying your taxes because it's not a choice. You have to pay them.
And actually, a lot of people... A lot of people who support social welfare programs, object to paying for wars. The U.S. just had this big bombing campaign in Yemen, right? There's all these kids that got killed, and nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of it. I don't want to pay for this anymore.
But you gotta understand that, the people that are just as dangerous as Al-Qaeda are the ones that we got to take their bank accounts away,
Oh,
the
yeah,
porn
give me a
stars
break.
And the people that are schlepping the guns, we got to put a stop to this.
Porn is just one step away from terrorism, really.
That's right.
It's moral terrorism. I mean, this is like just taking it to an absurd extreme. And, no doubt this is happening to a lot more people. There was there were a couple of porn stars who kind of spoke out about it recently. There's an article here in Vice where Tegan Presley, who is I guess she's a porn actress. I don't know.
She used to be. She doesn't. Yeah.
Right. She used to be. So she actually had a bank account closed at Chase Bank, and they closed her husband's account too. He's not even a porn star.
Yeah.
It was only because they were married.
Yeah. Their social security numbers are linked.
I mean, that's
crazy.
insane. Like that means you could be just living your life and your spouse engages in a totally legal business activity.
Right.
And your bank accounts both get shut down for no apparent reason. I mean, that's just like, if that doesn't make you want to run away from the banks, I don't know what does.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was going to say is that, this makes a perfect case for cryptocurrencies, to get on that.
Well, that's where we're going with this. I mean, because really, I hope these people who are getting cut off, and it's happening to Bitcoin businesses too. I mean, I know I have heard a lot of rumors in the Bitcoin community that, the major Bitcoin payment processors will actually drop people like gun dealers and people who are involved in pornography or any kind of adult services, because they're afraid that their bank is going to drop them. Their bank is looking for any reason to drop the Bitcoin payment processor as a customer. And so they're scared, and they end up being the enforcer, even though they don't want to be. And it's really nasty, the kind of paranoid environment this creates.
I just who do these people think that they are, that they can?
Good question.
It blows my mind. It's like, no, you can't be in porn. We will shut down your bank. I mean, it's this very weird. And then even like you said, even the Bitcoin companies, who this just shows even more, because they're following suit just like the banks. How they're following that again. There's no government squeezing them.
Not directly, maybe indirectly.
But what's squeezing them is just this moral, idea going around, or these fears of like, guns, oh terrible, and I don't even like guns.
No,
I hate guns myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to outlaw them. I don't want to outlaw anything, but I hate guns. But what is this? How do people think that somehow them squeezing you, be it morally, lawful, or, through legal matters or whatever, that somehow you're actually making the person better?
Yeah.
You're acting like a parent, and your child's going to do what children always do. They're going to rebel. They're not going to say, oh, well, I learned my lesson. No, they're going to run to altcoins, or they're going to run to Bitcoin, hopefully, or something, that's out there.
Yeah. I mean, what do you do? Like, there are a lot of more financial services for people who are so-called unbanked in the U.S. now.
Sure.
Bank accounts are getting to be more of a problem than anything else.
Yeah.
Like, they're not especially efficient or great customer service for receiving or sending payments anymore. They're slow and cumbersome. It takes 3 to 5 days. They got to settle up through the clearinghouses, and it kind of feels like just this old technology. You got to give up all your information. You got to, if you do anything that's like just an unusual type of transaction, even if it's completely legal, even if you didn't do anything wrong, they can report you to the government and not tell you about it. And I mean, it's just becoming more of a liability all the time. And but what do you do? Because not everybody lives in a place where they want to keep a bunch of cash under their mattress or whatever. I mean, I think Bitcoin is a solution, but you can't. It might be, depending on where you are, again, it might be difficult to just do everything in Bitcoin. It's going to be getting easier all the time, but for someone who has no experience with Bitcoin and they have to close their bank account within 3 days and they're panicking because they can't get another account and they don't know where to transfer their money, that's a big problem.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, things are being developed to make cryptocurrencies easier to use and to get access to and whichever. Other than that, I don't know what you do. I mean, you can go down the list of getting prepaid cards and all this stuff, but it's making it harder and harder all the time.
Right. Well, there is kind of I guess it's not a silver lining because it doesn't really relate to this story, but there is something that's been talked about quite a bit over the last 6 months or so since I think they announced it. We've got Dark Wallet, which has just come out in alpha. It's a Chrome extension. You can download it. I think they're just darkwallet.org or something.
Yeah, you have to go through the GitHub to get it.
Yeah, so. And you can play with it. And what this is a Bitcoin wallet basically that can allow you to automatically do mixing with your coins. So I think it uses CoinJoin. And in that case, if you use that wallet, mixing of the Bitcoins is automatic. So it gives you extra financial privacy that you don't have to specifically opt into and do an extra step.
Yeah, I mean, this allows for what they call stealth addresses.
What is a stealth address exactly? I mean,
okay. Yeah. Well, a stealth address is a Bitcoin address. You'll know it instantly because it has an S, I think, in front of it.
Yeah.
And you and I have played with Dark Wallet a little bit. And
yeah.
It's pretty slick.
Yeah.
And talk about ease of use. It's got that. And with this, essentially with a stealth wallet, is that it generates, its own, it generates multiple other addresses.
So you can give someone a stealth address and they'll send Bitcoins to it, but then it goes to some other address that they don't know and they can't really track. And
yeah, it won't show as the stealth address. It'll show as something else, and then that address pretty much disappears. But everything still goes to the one wallet, to the one stealth address.
And is that the P2SH thing that everybody talks about, the pay to script hash or whatever? Like there's something built into the Bitcoin protocol that allows you to...
This isn't exactly... Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of more of an offshoot of that idea.
Yeah, okay, we're getting too nerdy here.
Yeah, but this is interesting because Dark Wallet is trying they're not just a wallet, and I'm excited about this because I've had some not totally flattering words in the past for Dark Wallet, but now I have a much better understanding of what they're doing. And Dark Wallet they're literally trying to make the entire economy an identity service that the internet can provide. And making it all go dark. And by dark means it's totally anonymous. Or it's as anonymous as you want it to be. And that's impressive. And that's
something that's badly needed because right now you don't have any of those technologies that you have to opt out of. They're all opt-in.
Yeah.
Right. Like you have to choose to use mixing services or whatever. And I don't even know that you could use stealth addresses before this. I had no idea.
No, I don't think there was an implementation for it. So this is pretty unique stuff. And it's exciting because this is something I've talked about on my own show, Sovereign Tech, where I've said that, look, after the Snowden revelations occurred, I said there's going to be a crypto economy that's going to come out and it's going to crash essentially the world as we know it. And this is Dark Wallet's one of the few things out there that's really pushing towards that. That's getting rid of the status quo.
Well, don't they already say there was this really famous article that went around like a year ago about the System D, which is basically people who do business without licenses and without paying taxes and stuff. And it's like 2/3 of the world's economy. Yeah, and it's growing.
Right, or they call it a shadow economy.
Yeah,
that's
but
another word for it.
It's ironic that 2/3 of the world's economy would be a so-called shadow economy. That's like eclipses the. That's an eclipse of the real so-called white market or whatever.
Yeah, I mean it's really amazing, and Dark Wallet is just this whole going dark thing. The U.S. government anyway is afraid of this. The FBI has papers and Dark Wallet links to them saying, it's like, what do we do about this going dark thing? Because it's coming.
Wow.
Yeah, baby, it's coming.
Yeah,
and there's nothing you can do and the porn stars can be set free.
That's right, free the porn. And the people who made Dark Wallet have said, try to come get us.
Yeah, just bring it.
Yeah,
I love it.
They really have their principles in the right place. So
Absolutely.
Kudos to them. There's more coming up here on Sex and Science Hour. Stay tuned. Okay, guys and gals, listen up. We're about to talk shit. No, don't laugh. This is a very serious fecal matter. Here on Sex and Science Hour, we talk a lot about health in the human body. But did you know that our bodies are designed to squat when we poop? That's right. This whole sitting on the toilet thing, that's a bunch of crap. And it may contribute to all kinds of unpleasant stuff like hemorrhoids, constipation, and diverticulitis. Ew. So, we'd like to tell you about a very simple device that will help you solve this problem and get you back to doing your business the way Mother Nature intended it. It's called the Squatty Potty, and it works by gently helping you raise your feet when you use the toilet. This is a product that Brian and I both use, and it's made us into believers. And although the folks at Squatty Potty in no way endorse this show, we do have an affiliate link that you can use to get one, which will also help us out. Just check our show notes for the link, and get ready to say goodbye to your bathroom problems for good. Now back to Sex and Science Hour. This is Sex and Science Hour. Welcome back to the show. I'm Stephanie, and you're Brian.
Of course.
You know, I don't know if we ever introduced ourselves in the first segment of the show. Oh, well, sometimes...
That robotic voice does a good job.
That's true, yeah. Sometimes these things fall through the cracks here on episode 12. Okay, we got some science coming up in this segment. Now, this is kind of a stretch to call it science, but it is a supposedly, scientific poll. And I think poll results can sometimes be quite interesting because they reveal a lot of inconsistencies between people's thinking, typically.
Okay.
I'm talking internal inconsistencies, like people hold conflicting beliefs.
Sure.
And of course, when you're looking at a poll, it's a population-based sample of people. But, sometimes from the percentages, there's got to be some overlap between people who simultaneously hold these kind of contradicting views
right.
in the same person. So anyway, this is a poll from Gallup, which is kind of this respected polling organization. And they asked a bunch of people who live in the U.S., so the U.S. has 50 states, right? And the states all have their own different laws and like culture and things like that, whatever that is. I can't believe I just said that. But,
well, they do. There's a differing culture depending on where you go, certainly.
Yeah, I guess it's more regional than like based on the state. Like if you cross the border from New Hampshire to Vermont, like it's maybe not like a super huge change. I don't know. Maybe it is.
Well, I don't know. I mean, okay, I lived in New York. I drove 3 hours and I was in New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. One complete difference between, even though the lines are so short in between each other. I mean, again, 3 hours. Come on, driving. If you're in New York, it's a pretty good bet the person you talk to watches wrestling. Just because they're within those arbitrary lines, But I mean, you go outside of them, you have no idea.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
sometimes borders can reflect like sort of natural regions, but the point I was trying to make is that borders are just imaginary lines.
Oh, they are. But it's an idea that people believe in. And so like when you're born in New York, you're like, yeah, I'm in New York. I like wrestling.
Yeah,
or
sure.
I like the Mets.
I think it does tend to be a little self-reinforcing,
Yes. Absolutely.
A lot of people, if they're born in, I don't know, Illinois, but they like guns, they might be like, I'm going to move to Texas.
Sure. Yeah.
So anyway, there was a poll that was done among people who lived in the U.S. in these different states. And interestingly, there were a couple of places, like just a few states, Illinois, Connecticut, Maryland, where about half of people said that if they could, they would leave the state and move somewhere else. And then
they could.
Yes. The question was phrased, and it's always very important how they phrase the question. The question was phrased as, if you could leave, would you want to leave if there were nothing holding you back? And like half of the people who lived in some of these states said, yes, I would leave if I could. Now, the reason I brought up the contradictory beliefs thing was that among the people where, like half of the people who lived in these states said that they would leave, among these states, the people were asked, okay, how likely are you to move out of the state somewhere else within the next year? And like in Illinois, half of the people said they wanted to move, but only like 19% said that they were either extremely likely to move, very likely to move, or somewhat likely to move.
Wow.
Even somewhat likely to move. So like the 80% of people are definitely not going to move, even though 50% of the people want to move.
Well, that's crazy. And definitely, I wonder like what the reasons were. And I wonder
Well, they actually asked him about that.
Okay.
Do you want to know what the reasons were?
Sure. But I also wonder how many of these people, especially within that 80%, were born there.
Yeah, that's a great question because I think once you kind of break the seal, like if you move out of the state that you were born in, it's easier to move after that because you kind of realize, or especially if you live outside of the country, like if you even if you travel outside the country and you're like, oh yeah, it wouldn't be that hard to just take a suitcase and make a life here. I don't have to be limited to where I was born or near my parents or whatever.
Right.
Once you realize that, I think that's a real element of mentally breaking some chains and breaking free, right? But then again, like some people really like the region that they were born in, right?
Oh, sure. I liked parts of New York. I still think some of it is the most beautiful land in the planet. But, that doesn't mean that that's where I'm going to stay the rest of my life.
Why did you move out of New York?
It's New York. It's
but
the
I mean,
Empire State.
So paint a picture for people who maybe live in Europe or something. What is it like in New York?
Okay, I'm not talking about New York City. The reasons for that are pretty obvious, I think.
Yeah, I think people don't know that, New York is actually a huge state. There's a huge amount of land that is, incredibly rural.
Yeah, I mean, I did grow up in Queens for a while, so I know New York City well, but New York State, by and large, is farmland. Literally, it's farmland. Yeah, there's Syracuse, there's Buffalo, there's Albany, there's cities, but that's it. The rest of it, or Rochester, the rest of it is just pure on farmland.
Yeah, it's literally like this one fingertip of this landmass that is called New York is the most populous, densely populated place in the world. And
so I mean, it's just
maybe not in the world, but it's pretty dense.
Right. I mean, so you have kind of like smaller cities, nothing in comparison to even Buffalo or again New York City. But by and large, it's smaller cities, and like I said, there's just cows and horses.
But what was it? Did you not like the rural places, or was it like the nanny state?
Yeah, because you have this massive city, New York City, that controls the other 99% of the state politically.
Yeah.
The laws required, and I don't think I'm an anarchist, okay, but the laws required for New York City to function the way it does are meaningless to the other 99% of the state. And so you're living, even though you're living out in the country, the laws affect you like you're in the city.
Even though you're living in the country, you can't buy a soda that's bigger than 16 ounces.
Something like that. I mean, there's laws that are New York City specific and don't affect the rest. But by and large, the budget affects it. And so, it's terrible.
Yeah, actually, so of the people, this poll did ask people, if they were planning to move, why did they want to move? And of the people that said they were going to move out of New York, 15% of them said the taxes were the reason that they wanted to leave.
Yeah, well, there's a reason I left New York too.
Yeah, that's one. And then 21% said cost of living, which of course taxes go into that.
Sure, they're one and the same.
Yeah.
So no one said family?
13% said, 16% said family or friends. So that's fewer people than cited cost of living. So
that's I guess that's good because I was worried, because I think this family thing, and I don't want to go too deep into this, but I think this family thing is just as perhaps made up as as the arbitrary lines between states are.
Yeah, I think there's so many people who grow up with just this, their families kind of beat it into their heads that they have some obligation to take care of them when they're old and sick or whatever, or spend a certain amount of time with them, or have their grandkids, be exposed to the extended family or whatever.
Yeah, you get this whole shtick of, blood is thicker than water. Well, guess what? There's a lot more water on planet Earth than there is blood. So forget the blood, okay?
What a weird statement. Anyway,
it's sick. It's sick, really.
Yeah.
But my point is that, come on, you're beholden to people that you may have nothing that matters, which is your thoughts, your own ideology, in common with.
Yeah, you got to sacrifice your own life to do what your family wants you to do. I think that's a really damaging thing that a lot of people don't. A lot of people never feel like they're free from.
No, it's mental slavery.
Yeah, and I mean, that's part of becoming a free person. I think is to individuate yourself from your family. Yeah. And, perhaps you want to spend time with your family, and that's fine.
That's great.
That's
if you
totally
love your family,
fine.
that's so cool. Go for it.
Some people do. And yeah, that's great. If you have a beautiful relationship with them, you want to spend time with them, go for it. Of course. I'm just saying it shouldn't be an unchosen obligation that you somehow incurred by being born, Yeah,
I mean, and just, don't fall for the, it's well, I got to be there for my family. No, you don't. You don't have to be there for anybody but yourself. And if you're not, if you're
not there for yourself, you can't do anything for anyone else.
Exactly. If you're not looking out for number one, if you're not your best, how can you help anybody else?
Yeah.
Or how much more could you help if you really wanted to, if you were looking out for yourself more? Absolutely. Anyway.
Indeed. Yeah. I mean, I just was shocked by the number of people. We can move on from this, but I was just shocked by the number of people who want to leave the state that they're living in, but they have some excuse or something that's holding them back.
They won't put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah. And I mean, it can be, some people can have challenging situations. I get it. I understand, especially if you've established a business somewhere. Like, it's hard to just pick that up and move.
Sure.
If you're not a college student, it's hard to move, right? You got a lot of loose ends to tie up, but it's not impossible. And if you really want to do it, you can. You're not trapped where you are.
Yeah.
I think it's a very empowering message to say that.
Yeah. Just think that you're sacrificing if you're not doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of studies, there's something going on at MIT. And by the way, I think MIT is going to have some kind of Bitcoin conference this weekend after we're recording this. And apparently there's a donor who was, as part of Wall Street, an early Bitcoin investor, who has sponsored a project to give $100 worth of Bitcoin to every undergraduate student at MIT.
I'd heard about this, and I want to make this...
Yeah, we heard about it before it was announced.
Yeah, I want to make this very clear that my opinions...
So cool.
Well, my opinions are my own. They're not yours.
That's right, yes.
You, Stephanie, have your own opinions.
We are not a hive mind.
No, we are not a hive mind.
We love each other, but
right,
not a hive mind.
Yeah, exactly. And so my opinions are my own. And the way that this got reported, and this is not necessarily the fault of MIT... but this was getting reported as, the first real Bitcoin economy. And all I could think about that, I'm like, yeah, it was what? No, sorry, I've got the numbers. New Hampshire was the first Bitcoin economy.
What about the Silk Road? Aren't there more people in the Silk Road than MIT undergrads?
There's this whole oddball, and again, these opinions are my own. There's this whole oddball, worship of MIT, that when MIT finally gets on board with something, suddenly it's serious.
Yeah.
Well, screw them. Bitcoin's been serious for years, and you're just now getting on and, we're going to really use that Bitcoin. No, let me tell you, I've been here since 2011. I've been watching people really use Bitcoin to buy dinners, to buy newspapers, to get a haircut, to do everything you could imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? For years.
People were buying stuff with 5 Bitcoin Casasius coins when they were worth like $1 each, or $2.
Or at PorcFest, okay, an annual event held here in New Hampshire.
The Porcupine Freedom Festival, yes.
Yeah, exactly. I saw people buying, they were buying food in droves with 1 Bitcoin a pop when they were $5, when Bitcoin was $5. Look, stop. This story it's interesting to hear about, but this story's crap. This story's meaningless. I think.
Yeah, I definitely see your point. Nobody acknowledges the early history of Bitcoin because they all want to seem like they're cool and not acknowledge the libertarian hipsters who did it years before they did.
It's not cool until MIT or Stanford does it. And that's crap.
Oh, it's so last year.
It really is.
Yeah, it really is so 3 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know it can be a bit frustrating, but I think, let's be honest, the real reason they're doing it's not like a philanthropic thing or anything. They want to see what people do with the Bitcoins.
Right.
They want to see what businesses pop up, and they might, do some extraction of data from the blockchain,
Yeah, most likely. I'm sure this is somewhat of a test study, but that's not the way that, again, I know MIT wasn't necessarily spinning it this way, but the bulk of the media has been spinning it this way, that this is the future economy. And it's like, the future economy has been around forever.
Yep.
You people are so far behind.
The future's already here, baby.
That's right.
Are there going to be people pushing Keynesian economics and saying, wow, the government should just give everybody $100 worth of Bitcoin and tomorrow? Maybe they could, right? They could just take the stolen Bitcoin.
Some people, this is what Aurora Coin did, right?
I really need to stop giving them ideas. But
well, not that Aurora Coin is Keynesian, but...
No, but it is it has an element of that. John Maynard Keynes was a so-called economist, which a lot of people don't agree with his so-called economic theories.
Right.
But he said that a bad economy is caused by not enough spending.
Yeah,
so you got
exactly.
to stimulate spending, and you got to prime the pump by inflating the currency supply, which you can't do with Bitcoin.
Right.
You got to inflate the currency supply so that people spend more money and encourage people to go shopping, and that's what'll kickstart the economy. And in practice, I'm no economist, but I'm pretty sure the government's been. Every government has been trying that for many, many years, and it's not shown empirically to work.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I think
or philosophically.
No, right. I mean, but I think the digital realm, the digital economy, and what I mean by that is like even, books, MP3s, Bitcoin, go down the list, take your pick, literally has taken every economic theory in history, and I say this all the time, and it's tossed it out the window. Okay, but the point being is that I don't think it just tossed out Austrian economics. It tossed out Keynesian economics. It tossed them all out. I could be wrong.
So there's no laws of economics. I disagree. I think laws of economics are kind of like laws of physics. You don't just toss gravity out the window. Well, we'll see what happens, but don't be getting any ideas, governments. We'll be back. This is Sex and Science Hour. More coming up. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody. I just wanted to take a short opportunity to say a huge thanks to those listeners who sent us tips. It is so cool to know that people are listening. And not only that they take a minute out of their day to show us that they appreciate us. So yay, thank you so much. Also want to say a huge thank you to those who took the time to shop on Amazon through our Amazon affiliate links. That really helps us out. And it's so cool because we get to spy on you. Oh, not in that way, not in a creepy way. At least we try not to be creepy. But we do see what you buy on Amazon. And before you get nervous about that sex toy you purchased, it is not attached to your name. We don't see who bought it. It's just what you bought. So here are some of the things that people bought using the Sex and Science Hour Amazon affiliate links, which you can find in our show notes. We've got some cool Kindle ebooks, The 4-Hour Workweek, $100 Startup, an iPod Classic with lots of cables, kids' books and lots of baby stuff, and even a microphone, mixer, some windscreens, and pop filters for some aspiring podcaster out there. So thank you so much for keeping our show going. We really appreciate you. And now back to the show. This is Sex and Science Hour. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah.
You always say yeehaw in the third segment. I think it's becoming kind of a tradition, and you're an anti-traditionalist. What are you doing?
That's true. I'll figure out something. I'll say snarfblat next time.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Never
Ryan.
mind. Actually, snarfblat's probably like copyrighted by Disney, so I shouldn't use that.
Well, anyway, there's this cool story I wanted to talk about. I've been saying for years, and I'm not trying to take credit for this because I didn't actually implement the idea, and I'm sure a lot of other people thought of it at the same time, okay? But I've always kind of thought that, roads, okay, there's a lot of just unused, open, flat, not shaded by trees, black surface area of asphalt. Like, why could you not use that for solar energy harvesting?
Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads.
Well, that would be great if there were flying cars already, so we didn't need the roads.
Yeah, I don't know about the flying cars thing, but go ahead.
Why not? You don't like you wouldn't want a flying car?
People have a hard time driving on a two-dimensional space. In a three-dimensional driving condition, I'd be terrified.
That's why you do it all with drones. Self-driving, Ethereum controlled.
Safe controlled.
Safe controlled drones. I'm just kidding, Brian. But
yeah.
But I've always thought that, there's all this like blacktop and nothing is being done with it. I mean, it kind of very inefficiently absorbs sunlight, and
Sure.
maybe in the winter in a place like New Hampshire where it's really cold and icy all the time in the 6 months of winter, it sort of absorbs sunlight and you maybe can melt the ice a little bit, but it's really not reliable. But, why couldn't there be some kind of cell underneath or on the side or something? And that energy could kind of be stored for later when it needs to be heated up, and then like wires go through the road. And I've always kind of thought that if we actually had roads that were not done by the government, which we do, I mean, a lot of people have private driveways, malls, plazas, everything. Mm-hmm. Businesses create their own parking lots and their own roads inside of shopping areas where they want people to go.
Everybody made their own roads before 19 1932, I think.
Yes, that's
So,
true. And
I
now
mean-
people don't know how we would have roads without the government. But actually, like the not to get conspiratorial here, but the whole interstate highway system, that was all for moving tanks around.
Yeah, that was designed. It's a 24-page bill out of the 40s that was essentially, or, by Eisenhower, that was designed for moving military vehicles. It was not for civilian use. It just ended up, kind of ended up that way.
Being a boondoggle, yeah.
Yeah.
They saw an opportunity to
Yeah.
make people believe that without government,
Well-
who would build the roads?
They saw a way to make money by doing tolls on them. So
Yeah.
it's, it made sense on a government standpoint.
The amount of tolls where they say, oh, yeah, it'll go away after 10 years, it never goes
No,
away. It
no.
never
It's like,
goes away.
Egg, we said we were going to stop charging it, but we got to maintain this thing. So, so it's always funny because, like, without government, who will build the roads? It's like, well, hopefully somebody better than the government because they're doing such a piss poor job.
Yeah,
of
there
building
really
these things.
is so much technology that could be harnessed on roads. That's
Oh,
not.
yeah.
I mean, the surveillance technology on roads,
Yeah, right.
license plate readers and all these easy pass things. I mean, you can be tracked on the roads, but as far as technology that actually improves safety, improves people's lives, no, they don't really care about that.
No, in 30,000 people, I think you wanted to talk about something else as far as roads, but while we're right
We'll
here,
get to it. This is a good conversation.
30,000 people at least a year. Again, that's 30,000 people. I think one person dying is too much, but 30,000 people a year die due to road conditions.
Yeah.
At least. That number's probably gone up because that statistic's about 7 years old. Okay.
I thought it was 50,000, but that was like 5 years ago.
Yeah,
so I don't know. It's
it just
somewhere
keeps
in
rising.
the tens of thousands of people.
Sure.
In
Tens
the
of
US.
thousands of people die in the U.S. alone from road conditions. Okay. Now, is it the weather? No. Most likely not. It's not like, because most of these deaths aren't happening in snowy areas. They're happening in the middle of summer. Is because people are traveling more? Maybe
Well,
whatever.
Brian, it's the drunk drivers. We need to police them more strictly, and we need to ban
Right.
alcohol. We need to bring back prohibition. Really, that's the
Prohibition.
only way to solve it.
Ironically, drunk driving is a completely different statistic from the one that we listed.
Yeah, these are
And-
non-alcohol related.
Yeah,
Okay.
And this number, look, the thing is that people want to blame drivers. Nobody ever thinks, what if it's the road system that sucks? And it's literally the way roads are built and designed is what's killing people. But everybody just wants to blame other human beings. You know what I mean? They never want to blame institutions. They
Yeah.
never want to blame this thing that people just completely take for granted. I mean, consider this. The only thing that keeps you from running into, you're driving down a street. One guy's, coming, heading west. The other guy's going east.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that keeps the guy from going west and the guy from going east into hitting each other is a line of paint. No one thinks about that. That's terrifying.
Yes.
And it's amazing that people somehow follow that line of paint. Okay. But
Some
they
people do.
But that's all there is keeping you from doing that. You think that's not dangerous? You want to talk about danger? Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, this is turning into quite the rant, but it's true. Like, how much better could we be doing? Like, there are so many different technologies that could be tried and could be experimented with. Not only that, but there's so many regulations on cars that just prevent innovation from happening that could be, it could bring about better safety, could bring about better comfort or whatever. But, we just don't have the opportunity to play around with that. There's this Disney film from the 1950s where they're depicting what they thought the roads would look like in the year 2000 or something like that. And it's a really great film. It's incredibly creative. They got all these different, rails and loop-de-loops and
maglevs,
self-driving cars, maglevs. I mean, and so they're really thinking creatively outside of the box and thinking about what transportation would be like in the future. But we don't have that. It's the year 2014.
No,
and
it's a
we're
great
using 1940s technology on our roads.
Absolutely. It's a great point because you just walk into Epcot, at Disney World, and you can't, if you don't walk out of, I understand you're supposed to be smiling when you go to Disney. If you don't walk out of Epcot in a fit of depression saying, what the hell is wrong with us as a species that we're not already doing all this? Oh man, you're twisted. You're twisted if you're not depressed at that because it's so exciting. And
Brian, you're ruining people's trips to Disney World. Come on.
Hey,
that's not very
my
nice.
trip got ruined because I saw the future, and the future is run down because it was built in the 60s by by the Disney company. And
What happened?
what happened?
Well, anyway, this all started because there is a guy who's actually working on this very idea that we just started talking about, where he wants to build like basically a parking lot or eventually a road that is basically tiled with solar panels, and it will.
That could handle things driving on it, yeah?
Yeah, that could handle the pressure of vehicles driving over it. And tires, another thing. Why do we have air-filled tires that can pop? Anyway, that's another total tangent.
Those things are getting developed, but
not soon enough.
Not soon enough.
I think we'd have solid tires by now. But anyway, or self-healing or something like that. But anyway, this guy is building like a parking lot that has solar tiles that you can drive over, but will also capture the sun and can be used to melt ice and to power road lights. Like, that's really creative thinking. Like, why not use what's already there, which is the sun?
Right.
How long until the road mines Bitcoins as you're driving over the road? You're using the friction of your car to do some Bitcoin mining or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of creative thinking that I would really like to see blossom and take shape.
Well, I like this idea, but I have a caveat in that, just like with electric vehicles, a lot of these things clearly only work in California or like in the South.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, that could be. But like maybe there's some other way to make it work in colder climates, or there's a different technology that would make more sense.
Maybe, I mean, like something that I like, or maybe a modification of this is that if you ran like copper wire in the roads, in the asphalt, and then maybe if you had it, had at certain areas of the road, you had solar panels, not part of the road, but up from it. And that energy collected was being used to heat the copper wire so that it automatically melted the ice of the roads. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
This is actually set up I did as a kid on our house, when I was growing up. I mean, I helped my dad put it up. But anyway, this is the idea, is that if you just had like a copper wire running, it would keep all the icicles from hanging because it would heat up that part of the roof. Okay.
Yeah, that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
That sounds useful.
The thing is that if you go to touch the roof, don't touch it because you're going to get a pretty good shock. So,
shock or burn?
Well, you'll get a shock. I mean,
okay.
You've got that current and all.
Oh, because it's a live wire.
Yeah,
okay,
it's a live wire. So, but I mean, if it was an asphalt and it was using that, you were heating everything up with that, I think that's a pretty clever idea.
Yeah, totally. Like, I mean, the innovation and the experimentation is probably going to happen in these environments like parking lots that aren't the domain of government roads, right?
Yeah. And I think this is genius to do.
This guy actually did get a grant. He got like $100,000 grant from the government to build a prototype, but now he's going to crowdfunding. He's like, I'm done with the government. I'm going to try to go ask for crowdfunding to raise $1 million to actually do this in a parking lot. So good luck to him. That's pretty
Absolutely.
cool. I support him, and it's cool. Like maybe we'll have that in the future where we'll see the roads lighting up, and it'll be like those solar lights that you can put in your yard.
Yeah, or just the efficiency of collecting the energy and dispersing that around, to places that need it. I think that's great.
Exactly, and I think, this is Sex and Science Hour. We're almost done. We're almost out of time for the show, but I think we got to talk about sex, Brian, because we haven't done enough of that this time.
You can never talk enough about sex.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I want it to be a show that's like, I want it to be an informative show, but also entertaining.
Infotainment.
And sex is important. It's not like sex is a frivolous topic. It's a part of everyone's life, and sometimes it relates to Bitcoin too.
Yeah.
Although sometimes it's a stretch, but that's okay. Even if it doesn't, it's an important part of life. And it's why we're all here, right? None of us would be here if it wasn't for sex.
If it wasn't for sex, that's right. None of us.
Anyway, so you brought in this article about what your body type says about your sex life, which these are like these studies, sometimes dubious studies, but studies about like what people find attractive and like what personality traits that correlates with, or like certain body features like the length of your ring finger and then testosterone correlation. I think that one is dubious personally, and I've looked into it. But there are...
Well, it's at least true for somebody.
No comment. There are some interesting studies that kind of link certain preferences. Like, for instance, did you know that men who prefer large breasts are actually more sexist? They hold more sexist beliefs.
Yeah, see, that's specious.
I don't know about that. Somebody actually tested it, and they asked men about their preference for breast size on women, and the men that said that they liked the larger sized breasts, actually their attitudes correlated more with sexist beliefs against women.
Yeah, maybe it's like on average, right? Like anything else.
Of course, yeah, like it's a big data set. They also said that men who like small breasts prefer submissive partners, are financially secure, and aren't interested in fatherhood, and are less sexist than those who prefer large-breasted women.
Wait, they're less sexist, but they prefer submission?
Oh, Lord, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to offend the BDSM people, so I'm just going to say no comment on that. But yeah, maybe that doesn't go together. I don't know. Long legs. If you have long legs, no matter what gender you are, people are going to like that. But they only like legs that are like 5% longer than average, not 15% longer. If they're 15% longer, they were no longer seen as good.
There's a sweet spot, a Goldilocks zone.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, like if you're a woman and every other woman is walking around in heels, it makes their legs look like they're longer. So do you have to just wear like bigger and bigger heels to like pretty soon everyone's walking around on stilts? Brian.
Yeah, right. Well, I can't stand heels in the first place on I don't care for them on women so much.
I love the way they look, but they are so uncomfortable. Oh my God. Give me 5 fingers or barefoot.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, I mean, just think about the utility of it. I mean, if you want to suddenly you just get overcome with lust, and you want to go run off into the woods, for some stooping, if the woman's in heels, that ain't happening.
Yeah, there's something to it. I mean, like a lot of people say there's some psychological thing about not being able to run, and that's like attractive or something like that.
Yeah, men used to wear heels 200 years ago. They were the ones that wore them.
They sure did. The kings. It was like a princely thing to do.
Yeah.
Hairy chests. If a woman had a hairy father, she digs hairy chests. That's kind of weird. Gay men who are tops prefer hairless twinks. And
what do you prefer?
I'm a big fan of Michael Bolton with the silver gray silken chest hair. No, I'm totally kidding.
I was going to say, that's awesome.
Isn't he known for his chest hair?
He's known for his hair.
It really depends on the person it's attached to. How about that?
Okay.
But you know what? We are short on time, but there is like one more I wanted to get to. Big hips. A study showed that the number of partners a woman has is largely driven by how many one-night stands she has. Women whose hip width is larger than 14.2 inches have more sexual partners and casual hookups than women with hips under 12.2 inches wide.
Beyonce.
So, yes. And they're saying hips, but what they really mean is booty.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, we are...
Wait. What about... What's the thing about the ring finger?
Oh, okay. Speaking of put a ring on... No, that was terrible.
That was great.
Well, it's actually the index finger. So men whose index finger is shorter than their ring finger, so the index finger is the first one, is shorter than the ring finger, are more likely to have a large penis. And you're sitting there comparing your lengths right now. But you know what? I just looked at my hand and my index finger is shorter than my ring finger. Does that mean I have a big dick?
Probably does.
Maybe in my bedroom drawer.
Swing it.
It's not attached to me. Anyway, and then there was another study, finally, this is weird, that said men with large penises actually are more likely to be cheated on by their wives, and that every inch longer it was increased the likelihood of the woman being involved in extramarital partnerships by almost 1.5 times.
Absolute nonsense.
A study found.
Nonsense.
Oh, Brian, there's a study. It must be true. And
yeah, right.
I mean, like, a lot of these studies really are very dubious. Like,
sure,
we gotta make sure we say that, because it is easy to criticize a lot of these studies. They have every methodological, small sample size and biased researchers, reading into the conclusions, and correlation is not causation, but it's kind of a, interesting internet candy to talk about.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you have a big ring finger? Don't answer that, actually.
Long ring finger.
We're out of time. So we'll have to say we'll see you next week. And thank you so much for tuning in to Sex and Science Hour. You've just heard Sex and Science Hour.
Game over. Play again next week.